Good morning. We're continuing on with the series On Purpose, and today we look at what is a purpose. Our scripture is Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16. Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how will it become salty again? It's good for nothing except to be thrown away and trampled under other people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city on top of a hill can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on top of a lampstand, and it shines on all who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before people, so they can see the good things you do and praise your Father who is in heaven." This is from the Sermon on the Mount, and we looked at this several weeks ago with the Beatitudes. And just a reminder that in Matthew's Gospel, all of the teaching is consolidated into this Sermon on the Mount. Whether or not it was one actual long teaching is subject to debate. More than likely it was not, and just Matthew's way of gathering it together. From what we have in the other Gospels, it seems that Matthew has gathered this together. Now, salt is a seasoning. It's also a preservative, but it's also a symbol of purity because of the white color, I would guess. And Jesus says that when the salt loses its saltiness, that it's no good. Now, salt, there's just no way that rings true. But when you understand how salt was used in this time, then you can understand what Jesus is saying, and also what comes after when he talks about thrown away and trampled on. The salt was used in that day and time as a bedding material for an outdoor oven. They would put in a layer of salt, and then they would put tiles on top of that to so the salt's purpose was to sort of insulate and radiate the heat in, and just sort of absorb it and keep it going. But over a period of time of heating and cooling, the salt itself would chemically break down. It would no longer be salt. And when this happens, you had to take up the tiles, take out the salt, and put in new salt. And the salt was thrown away out into the path. But there was also symbolism here that when somebody who had been excommunicated or thrown out of the Jewish community, in order for them to be welcomed back in to the temple or synagogue, they had to publicly confess, and then they had to lay down in the entryway and allow people to walk over them on the way back in. And Christianity also adopted this practice in the early church when people were, when they had drifted away and when they came back, of having to lay down and let people walk over you. So that's at work there. And then we move on to the next part of this about letting your light shine. Well, before I move on, just wanted to add one other thought here. If a Christian is not fulfilling his purpose as a Christian, then he is on the way to disaster. We are meant to be the salt of the earth, and if we do not bring to life the purity, the antiseptic power, the radiance that we ought, then we invite disaster. And now we move on to the light. And Jesus said that he was the light of the world and that we should be. He said, "As long as I am in the world, I am the light." But when Jesus commanded his followers to be the light of the world, he demanded nothing less than they should be like himself. And the image here is that we would be reflecting Jesus' light. The Jews were very sure that while Jerusalem was to be the light for the world, but it was not their light, it was not manufactured light, it was God's light that was shining. And so likewise here, we're to shine the light of Christ out into the world. So, talked about God lit Israel's light. The duty of the lamp was to be seen, and as a Christian, our duty is to be seen, to be a light of the world, not a light to the of the church. So, a disciple of Jesus is intended to be seen. I'm referring to William Barclay's commentary here as you see me looking down. One of the things that Barclay said is that when we talk about shining out in the world, a Christianity whose effects stop at the church door is not much use to anyone. We're shining for God. We learned that song in Vacation Bible School and Sunday School. Hide your light under a bushel, no. I'm going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. The practice, or the houses in this time, were small and dark, and the light that Jesus is referring to that they would use to shine was olive oil in an open dish, and then there was a wick that was supported and floated on top of that or into that you lit, and that's what burned, is that wick that was supported in pulling the oil up into it to burn. Now, they didn't have matches. They didn't have a Bic lighter to be able to just kindle this back up. And so once it was lit, it was easier and more economical to let it burn. And so they would have a basket, an earthen basket that would not burn, and they would put this over the light, take it off the lampstand and put this over the light when they were out or when they didn't need it, so that when they needed the light, they just needed to remove the basket. And so that's the reference that Jesus is talking about, hiding your light. But he ends this section by talking about doing good. And we just did this series not too long ago where we looked at John Wesley's rules, general rules of do good, do no harm, and stay in love with God, or attend to the ordinances of God, as Wesley put it. Here, Jesus' admonition to us as a follower of Christ is that we should do good things, but do them in such a way that it points towards God, not towards us, does not draw attention to us, that we're the one doing the good things, that this is something good that is done from God. And I'm reminded here as I think about this that our mission of the month this month is the food for kids, the backpacks. And one of the things that has amazed me is that the children who get these bags, they don't see anybody except for the people in the school that hand the bags out. But they know the bags don't come from there. And when they're asked to write a thank you note for these bags of food, I'm amazed that they understand that they're coming from the church, that God is somehow involved in this. Because there'll be pictures of churches, or there'll be a cross, or there'll just be the words thanking God that they have these bags of food, knowing somehow that God is at the root of providing this food for them. And I think that's what Jesus is getting at here when he talks about that doing good and doing it in a way that points towards God. So in this passage, we have the salt. That the salt is to be used to flavor, is to be used to support, preserve, and that it can be broken down and become unusable. So the word to guard against that. And then with the light, that light, we've been commanded by Jesus to shine his light, and we understand that his light is that light from God, and that this light illuminates the pathway before us. It also shines in illuminating the path. It warns us against danger, and that we're not to hide it under a bushel, and that we're to do good. I hope that you'll be joining us in worship later on this morning as Pastor Don continues this series on purpose by looking at what a purpose is. And we see here two examples in this scripture that do point us and help us to understand that there is a purpose, and that we have a purpose in God's kingdom. So may God's blessings be upon you.